Are you thinking about buying or selling a home, or just want to keep up with what's happening with Twin Cities real estate news, stats, and trends? Then come hang out with us for a little while. Hi, I'm Kirk Duckwall, and welcome to the Twin Cities Real Estate Show. Today, joining me, Danny Dietl. Thanks for coming in. It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Yeah. It's
Good seeing you, Danny.
It's almost like a year, I think.
Yeah.
It feels like, yeah.
Did I get banned or?
Maybe. And Chad Priebe as well. We figured to let things settle down, let you guys on the show.
If I haven't been banned yet, then you're good.
We're going to ban you for pounding your fingers on the table.
I'm sitting on them right now.
All right. So make sure you check us out online at TwinCitiesRealEstateShow.com for our past shows as well as our great publications. Just recently released the BRIX report here. A lot of Twin Cities, just great things going on happening around the area, as well as the most recent stats of what's happening in the individual communities. Today, we're going to deep dive in the next segment into the commission lawsuit settlement. Yeah, kind of like we've been saying, if you haven't heard about it, well, you're going to soon. It's some pretty big news. That said, is, from what we're seeing, is it's just not being projected correctly by the media, a lot of it. I have directly from National Association of REALTORS what the bullet points are of that settlement, and the things that you're hearing in the news, just they don't line up.
I mean, it's not even close.
It's really bad.
Yeah.
And even a lot of real estate agents don't have things correctly. They think things are the end of the world,
Yeah.
And my synopsis is it's not earth-shattering changes, especially for us in the Minnesota market. So we're going to definitely dive into that. So if that's something you're interested in learning about, and I would stick around for it, because it as a buyer or seller or as a real estate agent, this is going to affect you. And there are changes you are going to want to be prepared for, and then how you may want to consider navigating those changes. So we're going to get into that in a little bit. But as always, want to talk about what's happening today in our market as far as the data. And it's definitely panning out to be a little different year than I expected, where everything was kind of going back in November and December was looking to set us up for this historically low inventory. We were tracking behind month after month. And then I think buyers saw this opportunity with rates coming down from October, where they were up in the 8s, right, to jump into the marketplace and grab a deal. And there was definitely some good buys out there in that November, December timeline. I look back at some of the homes I helped buyers buy, like no way they could get that for the same price today.
So 150, 180 price points on single family homes.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
no multiple offers.
And suburban houses in good shape, under 300,000. Yeah, it's just there was the opportunity out there, and I think we saw it on the move up buyers too. They saw opportunity in the 4s, 5s, and 600,000 range, grabbing a lot of that, and now they're choosing to sell those homes. And so, right, where inventory was way behind, now we're seeing things on the rise. So kind of breaking that down, new listings in our area week over week, up from 1,219 to 1,313. So that's 300, almost 300 more listings than last year. So 24% increase year over year in listings. And then the 3-month total is up 19.8%. So that's a pretty big jump.
That's great to hear.
Yeah. So this is creating probably the best spring market for buyers that we've seen. And I've tried to explain this to people. So they're like, oh, so it's bad for sellers? No, I'm not saying that. It's still in favor of sellers, but it's not that crazy 20 offers on half the properties market.
Yeah, it's a combination of that, as well as buyers just having a little bit more selection. I mean, is when the lower inventory goes, there's a segment of those houses too that they're not great houses. So, if you have 1 month supply of like actual viable homes, it might actually be a half month. So yeah, any relief there, give buyer more selection so they're not just settling is helpful.
One of the things that I think is really interesting when looking at this inventory increase is there's a big increase in total number of buyers too.
Mm-hmm.
This is not an increase of inventory because the buyers are sitting back. No, they're actually engaging in the market at a faster pace than last year.
Right.
But it's
Well, and remember, we went from the highest transaction count in 2021,
Mhm.
COVID. I mean, massive amount of transactions.
yes.
And then jump in rates and the market, I mean, it just stalled out completely. And you have these populations that are, you have the want to moves and the need to moves.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like the people who are on the sidelines can only be on the sidelines so long. You have life events, and at some point everybody has to get going. So the market was pretty well paused for about a year.
Yeah, last year was a very slow year in total transactions. Even though the market at this time was actually hotter for a seller,
Right.
it just wasn't as many buyers
Yeah,
in there.
right.
So, pending sales, and just like we're talking about, more buyers. That's up 11.6%. And then inventory of homes. Yeah, this keeps just growing. Looking 2 weeks ago, up 13.2. Last week, up 11.9. 3-month average only at 5%, but I expect that to continue to grow. I would not be surprised if we get to that 15 or 20% increase in inventory this year.
Be nice.
And what
Yeah.
does it look like? And I think about this. It's painful to try to understand this because we're all dialed in for the lowest interest rates we can get. But if I look at the big picture, with interest rates staying a little bit higher than what we anticipated, that might be allowing that inventory to grow a little bit. Because a quick drop in interest rates is going to cause chaos, I think, right? And we're going to have that limited inventory again and a lot of different stresses that bring us back to 2020, 2021.
Yeah, I was just reading about this a couple of weeks ago, saying if rates dropped a full point, that there was a pretty big chunk of the buying or thinking about a population that would engage in the market. And of course, that would just draw that inventory right down.
Well, look at December was a big prime example. Rates were down into the mid sixes, and look at the boost
our
that came into
activity
the
in
market.
December was
It's crazy.
Right.
I wrote 5 offers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I mean that's just a good indicator. People are ready to make a move. It's just a matter of affordability for a lot.
Yeah, so it's a little counterintuitive, but rates being a little stuck in that 6.5–7% range is actually kind of balancing the market and just kind of giving a nice cadence. But
yeah, we're back now. I mean, we are almost dead on par for 2019 total number of transactions, the velocity, the market meter, all of that out there. Talking about that market meter, 7.37 is where we're currently at. That's down just a hair over last week. So maybe we have peaked out, which is not crazy. We were talking about a possible early peak with this warm weather. We may have seen it, and this peak is really, again, dead in line with 2019's pace. So going back to that normalization. And, interest rates, like you were saying, right around 7.125, right, for a 30-year?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. Well, we are going to take a commercial break here in a second. Again, if you have any questions for us, you can reach out to TwinCitiesRealEstateShow.com or give your show suggestions as well. And when we come back, deep diving into the real story behind the commission lawsuit settlement. We'll be back here in just a couple minutes. Kirk Duckwall here again with the Twin Cities Real Estate Show. Our local sponsors are BRIX Real Estate, Network Title, Eric Bloomstrand and Chad Priebe with Bell Bank Mortgage, and James Tufson with the Preserve Group. Welcome back to the Twin Cities Real Estate Show. We've got Danny Dietl, broker BRIX Real Estate here, as well as Chad Priebe. We're going to kind of deep dive into some recent news about the NAR commission lawsuit settlement and really get into the real story behind it, because there's a lot of misinformation, I'd say, confused information, people twisting things around. I think we saw a major paper here in the Twin Cities, a headline that was just like, this is not true at all, and just completely putting misstatements out there, which it could really financially cost people money if they take it the wrong way, as well as just navigating the buying and selling process more confusing by putting this out there.
Right.
So, I've got the fact sheet from NAR here, and you can download it yourself. Recommend doing that. Just type in commission lawsuit settlement sheet, and that's how I came up with it. So, and it highlights, instead of having to go through the 100+ pages of the lawsuit, this is the outcome of that. So, I kind of want to talk about the way things have been in the past, at least as long as I've been in real estate in Minnesota, and then into the changes that we're going to see. And I think by doing that, you'll really get a feeling that the changes actually are not earth-shattering whatsoever. And I think they're going to be beneficial overall.
Yeah. Most of these are, I mean, the objective was pro-consumer. People should have choices, and things should be, well, they always have been negotiable.
Yeah, I think the perception was that it wasn't. And in some states, it probably was being pushed as like, well, this is the way it is, right?
Yeah. And the main one being the commission being predetermined.
Yeah.
Regardless of the agent and the agent and client's relationship on the buy side. So,
yep.
Seller hires an agent. They agree to a commission with that brokerage. That brokerage then agrees to split part of that commission with a cooperating buyer agent. And it didn't matter if that agent was brand new, never done a transaction, doesn't know how to fill out a PA or understand it. They essentially got paid the same as a professional, more qualified agent, because it was already predetermined in the MLS.
Yep. Yeah, you on the sheet sit there and pick, okay, here's going to be the total amount, and X amount is going to get paid off to the buyer side. And it wasn't necessarily, when I got into the industry, they really said, well, you're not supposed to, in the submission of a purchase agreement, negotiate commissions. Now, what's funny is if you actually read the document on the buyer's representation agreement, it specifically says you can negotiate commissions. So what brokerage were telling people and what the truth actually was, there was some confusion out there. Right. And so if we look at our buyer's representation agreement today, it basically breaks down, there's either going to be a flat fee retainer or a certain percentage that a buyer will pay. And then that if there is a cooperative commission being paid out, that can offset that differential. And what we saw most agents doing is they would zero the flat fee or the commission piece, and then whatever
and
was
accept
paid.
the MLS advertised payout.
Yep, exactly.
And again, that is the guarantee of compensation. If it's in there, you make the offer. Yep. You're getting paid that.
Yep. Yeah. Now, does that mean that every transaction was that way? No, by no means. I mean, you also have the ability on the sell side. They could set what those pay, and maybe there was a $1 or whatever it would be, and now it could be $0. And then the agent had to figure those things out. And you brought up and have mentioned now ever since this lawsuit has come around. I mean, is an agent really going to say, no, I'm not going to show you a house because the payout was low? I don't know an agent that necessarily would do that. I mean, I guess it wouldn't shock me if there was one, but
but how does that conversation even have? Hello, agent, I would like to see this house. No. Right. Or there is a if you have an agreement and I'm going to pay you, the buyer agent, X, the buyer does have the option to say, or had the option to say, I don't want to see properties where the commission is less, because if I have to bridge that gap. So buyers were in control with that. I think the argument was, were agents unilaterally making that decision on behalf of the buyer? And again, I mean, I have a hard time never happened with me.
Yeah, no, never.
You want to see the property, we'll see the property. We'll figure it out. Not too worried about it. So it's hard for me to believe that was a common practice, because how does that conversation even happen? I'd like to see the property. No. Well, why can't I see it?
They aren't paying me enough.
Right. Which if
I
that
think
was,
that's not going to be my agent anymore.
Yeah, and you move on, you find somebody else that'll show it to you, and so there's a lot of things like that are like they're out there as if this is like common practice. Does it happen? Probably, but to some sort of great extent.
Right.
I don't know. There's also the argument. You can't just say there's correlation and causation. So their argument was properties with lower commissions didn't sell as fast. Well, it's like, okay, were they staged? Were they professionally marketed? There's so many other elements to a listing that would make a determination on the outcome other than the commission.
Right. Yeah.
And so to just take a blanket statement and say, okay, well, if somebody didn't want to pay any commission or anything like that, there's a good chance that some of those other things weren't done and you didn't actually have a really properly represented home.
Yeah.
And then that would also have an effect on the outcome.
Yeah, I mean, I'm continuing to, and I keep adding pages. That's why I'm not done yet. But that improving outcomes with data book, and breaking down what is the cost of not staging, what is the cost of not doing professional photography, what is the cost of the reduced commission.
Pricing
each of these
appropriately.
Exactly. All these different things have effects to it.
Right.
So, and you've mentioned, like, okay, working on that low payout, no payout, or for sale by owner situation, we still just negotiated it out, right? And figured that out. So it's not like we haven't done transactions like this. And now with the rules coming into play, that's really what it's going to be. And it's going to be pushed through to have, hey, I'm working with you. We're going to decide before we ever go out on a showing what my value is, right? Just like when you're hiring a financial advisor, what is that cost? What is that service level that you're getting? Mm-hmm. And that's going to be determined. And then now is that an upfront flat fee? Is that a percentage that you pay? Is that a percentage the seller pays? We get to decide that.
Right.
So these things have been around, but now these new rules, this settlement is going to make it be the case. So
which is fantastic for consumers.
Yes.
Yeah, I
These
agree.
conversations should have been being had at a higher level with the buyer, agent, and the buyer up front. And instead it was a much more casual approach because the compensation was guaranteed. What I like about this is now there has been every model in the world already attempted. So rebates, low cost, flat fee, those have all existed. None of that is new. No. So to make the argument that like nothing is negotiable, it just may be that the agent that you wanted to work with set their value and you didn't want to hire them at that value, or you want them to be the cost of a lower cost option. Yeah. But they provide more value. So it doesn't mean that an agent has to charge a certain fee. You just find a fee that works for you for the value that you want. So you will see some newer models come. There are sophisticated buyers out there that need a lower level of service. Yep. And as a result, they should pay a lower amount.
Yep. Oh, yeah, you get that investor that just, needs a little assistance. They do
general contractor on their 30th house, understands value and cost of repairs and doing their own I mean, there are just so many different ways. No transaction is the same, and this is just going to create more opportunity for different models to come to market in a more transparent way, because those models have existed. Maybe they just weren't known about as well. But it's going to be up for consumers and agents to decide the working relationships they want at a value that makes sense for both of them.
So I'm going to kind of start from the bottom of this page because of kind of what we've been talking about here, which really to the buyers out there. The MLS participants acting for buyers would be required to enter into a written agreement with their buyers before touring a house.
Huge change.
This is a big one. Out
Yeah.
of everything, this is the biggest change.
I like this. Sorry if I cut you off. I like this because now we're going to have to give our value proposition, right? We're going to have to actually do more work up front. And I'm not a licensed realtor, but I do hang around you guys quite a bit. So this is
You stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night?
Yeah. But on the loan side, and again, I don't want to take too much time, but this is common for us. It's interesting to me how many people have purchased homes and then they still think I got to pay a realtor 7%, and these are homeowners, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was the maybe lack of communication on all fronts, right?
Yep.
Not just pointing at realtors, but just a lack of communication on how we're paid.
Yeah.
Being upfront, and that's going to be part of that value proposition.
There's also a huge distinction here between Minnesota is a very progressive market in terms of buyer rep agreements,
Yep.
compensation disclosure. There are absolutely states where buyers show up at closing and they go, I'm sorry, you get paid what? They didn't have a contract. They didn't have a compensation disclosure. The agent just gets paid. It's not there. We have had all of this in place for decades and have had a very transparent process. So there are some changes for us that are
this change, it's not that we don't do this form. It's just, usually you'd go out, maybe look at a few houses, sit down, have a conversation, then do this piece. Right. This is going to change. That person who sees the sign, calls up, I want to see this house. You're going to need that buyer rep agreement, at least based on what this is saying. They call up their buddy. Hey, I just want to go look at my neighbor's house that just went on the market. You're going to need a buyer rep.
Yeah.
Right? I do think you're going to eliminate a lot of looky-loo showings, which I'm actually, that's fine. The thing that would have never been a thing anyway.
Right. It changes the order of operations because a lot of buyers get excited, right? A beautiful house hits the market and a price point they feel comfortable with that like pulls them in and go, all right, we're ready to start looking. And they go look at the house. Absolutely. And, there's good and bad. I mean, there's something to be said about kind of exploring and dipping your toes in before you hire an agent. I also think there's value in walking a house with an agent to understand how they look at properties, look for issues, do valuations, and all those things. So it takes away a little bit actually from the consumer as well. But at the same point, it helps them determine, what's the process. Because what can happen is you randomly get connected with an agent, you go look at a house that you like, and all of a sudden you're in the offer process. And now you're learning as you're halfway through it. And that's not great for consumers.
I've been an advocate, anybody who watches the show, doing exploratory showings.
Yep.
Now, here's the thing. This does not stop exploratory showings. You could say to your agent, you know what? I'm going to do the contract. It's going to be for these 3 houses this afternoon, and that's it. And we're going to go look at explore. So you don't have to enter into a 6-month buyer rep agreement. So yes, you have to have one, but doesn't mean it has to be an extreme long period of time. But
so it's property specific.
You can
do
make
property
it
specific.
Okay.
You could do a short duration.
I've done that before.
Yeah. Okay.
It's more
Cool.
of like a promise ring than let's just test this for a couple days and see how it goes.
Yeah, and so what they're saying here is these agreements can help consumers understand exactly what services and value will be provided and how much, right?
Yep.
Your agent should be showing you what do they provide.
Which agents, for the most part, have been doing with sellers forever. This is just treating buyers much more like sellers in the kind of initial approach.
So let's jump into the seller side of it, right? Kind of where these lawsuits started. So it says we will be able to retain the right of consumers to continue to have cooperative compensation as an option so long as they pursue it off MLS through negotiation and consultation with their real estate professionals. NAR has agreed to put in place a new rule prohibiting offers of compensation on the MLS, and this will be effective in mid-July 2024. Okay, now this gets interesting here. Okay, so that's wait. So not doing buyer agent commissions? Oh, no, they break it down a little bit. And so I'm going to kind of read this in the reverse order. Compensation would continue to be negotiable and should always be negotiated between agents and consumers they serve. The settlement expressly provides that sellers may communicate sellers' concessions, such as buyers' closing costs, via the MLS, provided that such concessions are not conditioned on the use of payment to a buyer broker. So you can have a offered concession, just not say what it's being used for, right? Hey, we're offering 3, 4, 5, whatever, pick your percentage, right? That's there. It just cannot be phrased that it's for one particular thing.
Right.
So they aren't taking away everything. They're just saying we're just not going to call it this one thing on there, right? And then they get into this piece. The types of compensation available to buyer brokers would continue to take multiple forms depending on the broker-consumer negotiations. This is included but not limited to fixed fees. Hey, we talked about that we've already had that. Concessions from sellers. Yep, that's been a thing. Or portions of the listing broker's compensation. I mean, that's kind of same thing, right? So, this model is still showing that buyers agents are going to be very still active out there. We know that the next thing that's being gunned for is probably dual agency, right? True dual agency, where the one agent represents both the buyer and the seller.
Singly.
That's a good thing, right?
So
I think so. Yeah, absolutely.
Keep in mind, you get this. Hey, I'm going to call the listing agent. Well, now you're signing a buyer rep with that listing, right? Things are changing, but the whole idea is for.
But also, you could always, if you thought you were if you wanted to negotiate directly with the listing agent, you could always do that.
Yeah.
To this day.
Yeah. So that, again, nothing new.
Right.
At all.
So, I mean, yes, they're taking away compensation. Now, here's the thing: is off the MLS, but it also states in here it can be done via other ways. So, I mean, it could be likely. We don't know for sure, but it might be done through the showing approval system. Yep, here it is. Buyer agent compensation is blah, or an email goes out, or a text goes out. Having these things in there, that is not. There's nothing in here that says that they're actually saying you can do that. So, it's just. I think the idea, going back here as we wrap up, is there has been concern, to your point, probably not huge, but there's been concern that agents aren't showing properties because they have a low payout on them, right? That's one thing. And the other is that commissions are being preset by listing agents versus between the buyer and their agent.
Yep.
This is fixing that.
Yep.
Right? So nothing earth-shattering here. Yeah, you're going to, for those buyers, you're going to have that buyer rep in place. But if it's something that's I don't want to do that, again, put a time limit on it.
This hurts agents who are invaluable who are not valuable to a transaction.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah,
so I would
absolutely.
say, as a percentage of the settlement, as I understand it at this moment, this is 70% of it is good.
Yeah.
And will help consumers.
How many states are currently doing this? Do you guys know?
Well, you mean like what we've been doing?
No, like what we're going into.
Oh, this is going to be
this
is the entire country.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is changing.
Oh,
it.
yeah. This is everywhere.
Okay.
Yep.
So it'll be an even playing board
national.
across the country.
Prior to this, there's only been 12 states. Was it right? 12 states that had buyer rep, I think.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. It was a very small number.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I don't know exactly. And there's states where dual agency is completely outlawed.
Mm-hmm.
It's illegal. So, I mean, the models from state to state are different, and each state is still going to have a say in how things kind of function in their own markets. But overall, it's going to create some confusion and things like that. Again, a lot of it because of the misinformation. Like all of a sudden, agents are going to work for free. Good agents, I mean, it's just not going to happen.
No.
They're still going to get paid relative to their value that they bring to a transaction. It's just for them to negotiate with their client and not for the seller or the listing brokerage to set.
So my advice out there for buyers, make sure they're showing you what is the services that they provide. Maybe do a short-term exploratory showing contract or something like that. Feel them out and their value proposition. For sellers, don't just think, oh, I'm not going to have to pay anything anymore. There is an effect. We know there's an effect that reduced and all of this, because then money's not being put towards marketing.
Let's talk
in the
about
same
why.
ways.
Okay,
And,
we are in one of the most unaffordable markets we have seen in my lifetime.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so now if you're going to add a hard cash out-of-pocket cost to a buyer, you are going to limit the potential buyers.
Yep.
It's hard for buyers. They got to come up with the down payment, the closing costs. If they have to come up with additional cash out of pocket to pay their agent, it is going to reduce. Now, if there's two properties, one will help assist and one won't. It just financially makes more sense for them to go with the one. That's if, two houses are identical and all that. That plays into it, but it's affordability is an issue, and that needs to be considered as a seller.
Well, especially, I think I read 40% of the buyers in this market today are first-time home buyers. Well, a lot of those aren't sitting on a ton of cash, right?
Right.
So that's a good point.
Yeah. If anything, the direction we've been going is more and more pro-buyer agent representation over the last 20 years. This, I think, actually instills this even more, right? So as sellers, just be careful on the mindset, oh, I'm going to save a bunch of money.
The current system was set up because every realtor was an agent of the seller.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you represented the buyer, you were a sub-agent.
You're talking pre-'89, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So buyers never had a fiduciary that was
Right.
there for, the definition of fiduciary. I put their interest ahead of mine. Everybody works for the seller. That is not a good system.
Yeah.
No.
So.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, again, check this document out. It really explains well what's coming up and how to prepare yourself for these changes. So, well, thanks again, guys, for coming in. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Kirk.
As always, check us out, TwinCitiesRealEstateShow.com. We'll see y'all in a few weeks. Kirk Duckwall here again with the Twin Cities Real Estate Show. Our local sponsors are BRIX Real Estate, Network Title, Eric Bloomstrand and Chad Priebe with Bell Bank Mortgage, and James Tufson with the Preserve Group. Don't forget to check us out online anytime at TwinCitiesRealEstateShow.com. There you can find all of our past shows, our weekly market updates, along with the latest and greatest searching and researching tools, and our free publications, to include the Smart Home Buyer Guide and the Smart Seller Guide, along with the BRIX Report. All of these free for you. If you have any real estate questions, please feel free to give us a call, 651-303-0019. Again, 651-303-0019. Happy to help answer any of your real estate questions or assist with your real estate needs.